Welcome to the Bravosity. I'm Brevon, and I'm here today with Nathaniel Moore once again. And today we're talking about a game that's a bit different than our forte, our usual thing that we do, which is RPGs. But it's a very unique game, and it's pioneering things and pushing things in the industry, which is what we really like to look at. And we like to see original concepts from small developers is something that we just absolutely love to look at. And the game we're talking about today, as you've seen in the title of the video, is Lemnis Gate. We've both played about 15 hours of this turn-based multiplayer first-person hero arena shooter, and even with the explanation of genre, we already, have it's a bit complicated, and that's one of the things I feel sort of bad for Rat Loop Games Canada, the developer, is that like this game is not the most marketable thing. But something that will help this is the fact that it's on Xbox Game Pass. That's how me and Nate played it. I was on a Series S, and Nate was on an Xbox One original. And it's released on PlayStation, PC, as well as the Xbox. But I think Xbox Game Pass is where we'll see most attention on it. It has full crossplay, and me and Nate haven't ran into too many PlayStation or PC players. It's been mainly Xbox, but that may be because we're on the Xbox platform. But it's just a fantastic hero shooter. It's probably the most unique take on the hero shooter since Overwatch. I mean, since then we've had Paladins, we've had Gigantic, Battleborn, just a litany of hero shooters. You've got Amazon's Crucible. I'm sure everybody remembers that game that was out for about a week and a half until they canceled it. Um, all these games, they brought their own little tweaks to the hero shooter formula, bringing a little bit more from MOBAs like Smite and League of Legends, or bringing more from arena shooters, and there's just a different balance. Paladins is a little more complex, while being a little bit less balanced than something like Overwatch. But here in Lemnis Gate, they've just done something completely unique and completely transformed this genre, almost even more than Overwatch did to the creator of the genre, Team Fortress 2. I mean, Overwatch changed a lot, but the main thing that game did was polish, polish, polish. That Blizzard polish that we see in Diablo and World of Warcraft, that just comes from their massive budgets. Where with Lemnis Gate, we see a decent amount of polish. There's some problems which we'll talk about, but the main thing is that they took this extremely unique and interesting concept and just absolutely nailed it. And that is, it's hard to explain. It's a turn-based first-person shooter. At least most of the modes are. So the way it works is every round is 25 seconds, and you'll put in. You can play 1v1, 2v2. Me and Nate have experienced both of them: 1v1s against each other, 2v2s against other people, and you have 7 heroes, and most matches have 3 to 5 rounds, depending on a 2v2 will sometimes only have, each player will only have 3 rounds, but it's usually 5 rounds in total for a 1v1. So the first round, you would put your character in, play for 25 seconds with nobody else on the field, and then after that 25 seconds is over, the other player is going to play. And while they're playing for 25 seconds, whatever you just did on your turn is going to be happening while they're playing. And so this allows for all kinds of things. Like, so if I kill one of the other person's characters at the 10-second mark, but then they come in on another turn with their sniper and snipe out the guy that just killed their character at the 5-second mark before they kill their character, then now that character is still alive and can do all of these actions that they couldn't do because they were dead. It's really interesting. And the advertising has put forth, think past, present, and future, and that's a real thing you actually have to do. It's not just marketing speak. Like you have to think about the past turns, the present, and then what's going to happen in future turns. And it's just if you can once you can wrap your head around the concept, um, it's really interesting. And I think although there are some problems we're going to talk about with this impressions, uh, for the most part, they really nailed this concept. And so what are your overall thoughts? Your bit of a summary on your thoughts on Lemnis Gate, Nate.
I really like it. I think the idea is really innovative. I uh, I think the character designs cover most of the basic bases for the different powers that they have. A lot of them have powers we've seen in other games that are similar with the hero shooters,
Yeah,
like
like Rush and
yeah,
Lucio are
Rush.
extremely similar.
Yeah, and then there's a guy who drops landmines. We've seen that in a lot of games. Somebody who sets up turrets. We've seen that in a lot of games. Someone that teleports, though, Toxin, has a more interesting design, able to teleport around different parts of the map as long as you can aim really well and can spray toxic goo all over the place so that if you step in, you take damage. But guy covers people with shields. We've seen that before in some
But I
games.
think though, with the whole time loop mechanic and how we see the game being played here, I think the simple kits for
Yeah.
each of these characters is like necessary.
I wasn't saying anything bad about them using character designs that we've seen before because they use these character designs to cover all the bases that are necessary for them to practically have the strategies that you gotta work with
Right,
throughout this game.
that we've
But
seen in some other hero shooters and just games like this in general. But it's the difference is you have to learn how to use all these characters, no
yeah,
matter who you're playing. Whereas in Overwatch, you only have to learn like one or two characters to play optimally. You're gonna want to know how every character operates, but it's not as necessary as it is here in Lemnis Gate.
yeah, because I mean, if you play a 1v1, you're gonna have to play five different heroes because you can't replay the same hero twice.
Right, and you're gonna need to know how to play against those heroes as well. And each character, like we said, they're a little bit generic, but and they're also very simple. They have a unique weapon and then a unique power, such as Capitan has the assault rifle
With a
and a
grenade.
grenade. Rush has a speed boost and submachine guns. You talked about Toxin has a teleport and this toxic gun that can leave hazards on the ground. And they're all fairly simple, but they offer just the right amount of strategy within the battlefield. And one of the cool things about this game is no matter like any turn with any character, you can completely change the face of the battle. Who's winning? Who's you can go from losing every objective to having control of every objective with one character if you do things right by killing the right people or just stopping the right situations.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like with this game, them just using the basic character abilities that we've seen in other games works really well. Like laying down that landmine seems like a really basic thing. It seems like it's almost too simple, but sometimes people forget about that 4 rounds into the game, and on the
Right.
final round, they mess up and accidentally lose a character that could have been the turning point for the entire half of the game.
And I think it helps with balance a lot because obviously we're only 15 hours. We've only played about 15 hours, so we haven't really experienced that much of the game. But so far, it seems like there's some good balance. There's strategies that are better than others, but overall the game seems decently balanced.
I think like time to kill is definitely good in that game. Time to kill works very well. It's not too fast so that then, like Call of Duty, you just see someone, they're dead. As long as you saw them first, they're most likely going to die.
Right.
There's some strategies that some of the pro gamers have got that made it to where they don't necessarily always die that easily. In this game, time to kill is a little bit longer without being like Destiny long.
Right.
If you've
Right.
ever played that, they have a really long time to kill. If you walk up and just barrel stuff someone with a shotgun, they'll die instantly, which is pretty good, or a headshot with the sniper, which is hard to pull off sometimes, so it's really rewarding.
And talking about that sniping being hard to pull off. Talking a little bit about the shooting mechanics of the game. We both use controller, so I assume this probably isn't near as big of an issue on a keyboard and mouse. But the especially with the default settings for this game are garbage. Um, and I think it's really going to put a lot of people off when they first start into this game and they go into the training room and they're like, this feels horrible. Like I can't aim at anything. Even with lots of adjustments, it never feels great. Like it's serviceable. It definitely works and I enjoy it combined with the strategy, but if this was just a hero shooter without this time bending turn based element, I would not play it. I would immediately drop it because of how iffy the shooting is.
I don't think the shooting is quite that horrible, but at the same time, it definitely doesn't hold up to a lot of other modern games. Like, I wouldn't say that it's super, super bad, but I don't know, maybe a tier less than like Overwatch. Overwatch has pretty okay shooting, but with the default settings, there's so much motion blur. There's um, was one setting that you told me to turn off immediately. I think it was like camera shake.
Yeah, there's really bad camera shake, which makes it horrible to try to, aim even more. And another big problem I have with this game, and I can't decide, it's hard to tell how much of this is intentional from the developers and how much of it is, unintentional. And one of the things I really have a big problem with is the FOV. It feels extremely claustrophobic. Like I'm looking through a damn, I don't know, like a toilet paper
Some
roll, like on each of my eyes. Like it just, I can't. It's just really bad. And I think they might. This might be a thing because it gives you less of a view of the entire battlefield, and so makes performing these strategies a little bit more difficult, I suppose. But I don't know. I don't hate it. I enjoy the game as a whole, which we'll get into some of the more of the positive stuff here in just a minute. But the FOV was something, and in the shooting as a whole, really was something that just brought the experience down for me, and I think is just sort of mediocre.
I think that the FOV isn't necessarily all that bad. It definitely isn't great, but I do think that there's some other modern shooters that have similar FOV.
On console,
Yeah, on
yeah.
console.
I don't know if there's an FOV slider on PC. We haven't played this on PC.
Yeah, we're some
Um,
plebeians. We can't afford good
yeah, especially
PCs.
during this chip shortage. But if there is an FOV slider, then the disparity between console and like PC, like balance wise, has to be like so far towards PC because the shooting's
Yeah.
already better on PC.
Yeah, if you
Even
play
even
against
if the
some PC
controls,
people and they play
uh,
Striker, which is the sniper character, expect to be
right,
headshot.
right.
If they don't play like a complete idiot, you're probably gonna get killed.
But moving on from some of these negatives, talking about the shooting, we'll talk about the map design. And this, I think, is solid. Is really solid. There's like 10 maps, I
You're
think,
around
roughly. We
there.
don't have we didn't have the exact numbers. A
We
little bit
didn't count
unprepared
them.
here, and I'd say maybe a quarter of them are a little bit bad. There's a snow map. There's the map with the trees, which I really like the design of. And maybe we're just bad, but I didn't. I had issues with a few of the maps, but I think overall the map design is very solid. And even in those little bit worse maps, compare this to mainstream, compare this to Call of Duty, and the map design is just outstanding. Like it's it's not quite like Titanfall 2 levels map design. Like that had some.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's not hard to beat Call of Duty's map design, though.
right.
It really isn't.
And
It's just all hallway shooting, anyways.
but I think the map design is done really well for each of these characters and the style of game that they're going for here. This turn-based style of game. All the maps are pretty small and simple while offering tons of different like crossing pathways, and you have like holes in roofs where you can teleport in with toxin, and just a lot of
Yeah.
opportunities to use all of these powers in different ways.
There's also a lot of very good verticality with the jump pads that are in just
Absolutely.
about every map, and it makes sure that there's usually at least two, sometimes three levels of verticality.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice for them to have done that because it really adds more elements into the map design when you can have, like, say, a sniper get up top. He can see a lot more areas,
Right. I definitely would agree with that. And
or
there's
dropping in from the top, like you'd said, through the hole in the roof. That a lot of people don't expect that, and then you just pop down
right.
and you ruin their whole strategies.
And we see in the map design there's a lot of like choke points that are made, but there's always plenty of. It's not like, again, we're gonna keep harping on Call of Duty, keep burning that bridge, like the last video, but
The old ones weren't bad, by the way, so I don't burn the bridge with
a
all of you.
little
Like,
mediocre. But
Estate was pretty good.
all right. The map design, compared to Call of Duty, where you have these lots of choke points that are unavoidable almost, or there's only a few different ways into them. There's so many different ways in and out of these choke points. Every building has at least four doors, maybe a hole in the roof or something like that,
Yeah.
and what we see also in these maps, every map in this game has a unique game type. Like multiple maps may have the same game type, but you won't see multiple game types on the same map. There's four game types: domination, which involves capturing three objectives, like you've seen before. Although you will shoot the objectives to capture them in
Yeah.
this, unlike Halo or Call of Duty. Battlefield, where you just stand in the objective and you'll slowly capture it. And then we have Seek and Destroy, which is pretty similar. One team is going to be defending two objectives, and the other team is going to be trying to destroy them. And the third one we have is Retrieve, is XM Hunt or XM Retrieval, where you're going to try to get these, collect one of these little orbs. There's about 5 of them on the map, and you're going to try to collect them and bring them back to your gate, your base. And the last one is just a basic deathmatch. And all of these maps are perfectly designed for these game modes. That's why they only have one game mode on each map, because they are, meticulous. Everything's meticulously placed to try to be as balanced as possible. And yeah, like we said a minute ago, I really think overall balance in this game is pretty fantastic. And it's, so far at least, it seems like there's a lot of strategies, a lot of ways to do everything.
Speaking of about balance, I don't think that we talked about this yet, but every game is split into two halves. The first person to go, if you're not doing simultaneous turns, which is also an option, there is simultaneous turn game modes.
Which you're still going to be playing one character each person's still going to be playing
Yeah.
one character at a time, obviously, but everybody runs simultaneously. And then once you hit the next turn, each person again is using one character and running simultaneously. But everything you guys did on the previous turn is still happening, and you can kill those people before they get to do those things, and
Yeah.
some things like that. But continuing with what you were saying, Nate.
Well, besides the simultaneous turns, no matter what, whoever went first is at a slight disadvantage. So they do a really smart thing here where they split the games in halves. So the first half, one team will go first. The second half, the other team will go first. Because whoever's going first is also not going to be able to get in the last turn.
Right, not going to be able to
So
go last.
the person who gets to do the last round could come in with, say, like Rush and just kill everybody
Right, or take
on
all the
a team like before they can do any of their actions.
Yeah.
So
Although there are plenty of ways to plan
yeah,
against that, to keep
there's
that from
plenty of ways
happening.
to stop that from happening, but it does make it to where there's always a slight advantage for the team that has the last round. But they
Yeah.
do a really smart thing by making sure that both sides get to have the last round at least once in the two halves of a game.
And then it's
And they flip the spawns as well, so then map design, they make sure everybody has to play pretty evenly.
and there's also like if you're playing seek and destroy, one player, whoever's defending first, will have to attack second, or vice versa. And so each match is also scored sort of similar to like a tennis or like boxing match, where you get different points for doing different things. Technically, just because you win the objectives doesn't mean you're going to win the whole match. You get like 100 points for objectives, 50 points for kills.
I
It's like
think it
10
was
points for kills or something like that.
yeah, small amount of points for kills.
Right, less points for kills and then even less points for damage, which allows, even if people draw, both rounds, they can win the full game by having slightly more points, sort of like I said, like a boxing match.
Except the objectives in Seek and Destroy, if you defend an objective, you only get 40 points. But if they destroy an objective, they get still 100 points. So it makes it to where it's really hard to win a half of the game if you lose even one objective. You have to have done fantastically throughout that round and still lost the objective if you want to win the half of the game.
And that brings me to I was talking about the snow map earlier, and the game mode on that is Seek and Destroy. And I was talking about how I didn't really like that map. And I thought, because I seen it as, it seems like it's a bit too biased towards the defender side. It's not really balanced against the defender, or it's not that balanced. It's very biased towards the defender side. Yeah. But now that you say that, it makes sense that you would have the objectives that far away and a little biased towards the defender side because of how many points those attackers are going to get if they destroy that objective. And that's the good thing about the Habs system, is even if one side is unbalanced, it's fine because both people are going to get to play that side. And that's there's just been a lot of little things like that have really little touches that have really made this game just solid. Other than slightly mediocre shooting, it really nails the concept that they set out with, that they came up with here.
One thing that they definitely have had a major problem with has been their servers.
Yeah,
Casual servers. It's so hard to get into a game. If you go in ranked, you can get into a game pretty easily, but
actually, right now they just turned off 2v2 ranked servers, and you can only do 2v2 casual. But I believe the casual servers are fixed.
They fixed them?
Yeah, and now it's the 2v2 ranked servers that are down. But overall, there's some big server issues, and it's really sad to see, because I think that's going to put a lot of new players off as they see these server issues.
Yeah,
but
I was really worried when I couldn't get into a casual game when I first got it.
Yeah, but if you do, just hopefully they're going to work through these pretty quickly. But if you want to get into this game now, if you have Game Pass and want to get into it right now, I would advise going to the Reddit, seeing if there's any posts just about the current state of the servers and what servers are working and what servers aren't. It's not great, but I hope they can get back from it. I hope they figure out the issue and fix the problem as quickly as possible.
And then beyond the server problems, we did notice quite a bit that the rotation of maps is a little wonky.
Yeah, it gets a bit stale. They play the same maps a lot. Like, it seems like there's overall a good variety of maps. There could definitely be more added, but the overall map rotation seems to favor certain maps, and has made it to where we've played the same maps a lot of times.
Yeah, and we haven't. I don't think that we even played. I think one or two of the maps at all in the ranked play.
Most games have that issue, have an issue with this.
For sure.
but hopefully it's an issue we can see solved. And um, one thing I haven't looked into much, and I probably really should have to do the research for this video, but I don't know much about post-launch support, what they plan on bringing. The game currently has no microtransactions. It's a $20 purchase, or of course on Game Pass. And we see a little bit of progression with some, they call them timelines. It's basically like a miniature battle pass thing that's completely free, which offers different weapons that actually do, like, they're actual weapons, not just skins, and skins for your character and emblems and some emotes. And there's one that has been around since launch, and one that I think is like really slightly post launch, or maybe the other one was only around in beta or something like that. But I think they plan on adding more of these in the future. That's really what it seems like they've set up here. But overall, this progression system that they have in here, these timelines, they're okay. They're nothing fantastic. I mean, the guns are just slight variations of, stability, magazine, weapon handling, just a few different stats, but nothing major. I haven't noticed any
Yeah.
major changes after I
No
changed the
damage
gun.
change at all.
Um,
There is even a damage indicator to
right,
show how
and
much damage certain guns do. It makes sure that they're still going to do the same amount. The only thing you're trading is reload speed, magazine size, stability.
and I understand that because of balance. I understand trying to keep this balance good, but it just really doesn't make even the stability of the magazine stuff. It doesn't make all that much of a difference. I didn't notice much of a change when I switched guns and then went into a new match. Maybe after 30 hours, 40 hours, we'll start to really notice. Once we get into more strategies, we'll start to notice more changes. But after 15 hours, I don't think the guns make that big of a difference. And I have a few of them. I have a decent amount of different ones. The skins are pretty okay, mainly palette swaps, color swaps. But then the second timeline has a very different look, very different style, and then different palette swaps of that style. So again, not bad at all. A nice thing to have in the game, but I'm not sure if they plan on selling future timelines. I hope that's not the case. Or map packs, they may end up selling those. I don't know if they're planning on adding map packs or characters. I don't believe they've released any information on this either.
To be honest, I would be completely okay if they were to sell cosmetic changes, but if they were to sell actual new guns,
Yeah,
then that
that'd be
would
an
be,
issue.
yeah, that'd be a bit of an issue. It really sucks when games can give sometimes an advantage or just more options to someone who's willing to spend more money. But I'm okay with the skins if it means that they'll continue to
Support the
support the
game.
game and make sure that there's also free editions.
I've always been a big fan, or I'm old school. I'm more of a fan of like the map packs, buying map packs instead of paying for microtransactions and getting free maps. I think it's more you get more maps consistently. Although I do understand the problem of fractioning off the player base into each of these map packs and how that can affect a game. But when we have this game that offers only 2v2s and 1v1s, I think that that'll solve that issue a little bit, depending on how small of a player base this game ends up with. Me and Nate haven't had much trouble getting into games. We haven't been seeing too much of the same people. We've saw the same people a few times, but it would be like we finish a match with them, and then right after that we're putting another match. Like we're not seeing the same people consecutive days. I think it has a decent population so far, and Game Pass will definitely keep that population afloat. But one thing we haven't really touched on, and since we were talking about skins and the map design, is the art design of the entire thing. And this is another thing where it's like I think it's going to hurt the marketing of it and the mainstream appeal because it's a very generic looking sci-fi art design, very generic sci-fi, very all these heroes are fairly generic sci-fi characters, a goofy robot, you've got Rush, which is a Jamaican fast person, literally,
Lucio.
yeah, literally a carbon copy of Lucio. Um, and just fairly generic designs all the way around. The map designs, while not bad looking, nothing looks bad.
Yeah, I actually think some of it looks pretty good. There's a few maps that look pretty unique,
Yeah,
but a
and
lot of the
there is some
assets
uniqueness
within
to
those
it.
maps, like
Right,
buildings look very generic, like your pure white, clean space
right. It's just a
building.
box.
Yeah,
Um,
and then I don't know, a lot of concrete ground, just really
yeah,
basic looking stuff, and then concrete buildings occasionally. It's
like
pretty average.
here's sort of what explains the the art design is like this one map. We have this giant tower in this ocean, and you're on this big platform on top of this tower. And it's a really cool design to have this weird sci-fi looking tower up in the sky and stuff. But the actual map itself is fairly generic. It's just
Yeah, you
when it
don't
comes
actually
to
see most of
cosmetics,
that.
aesthetic.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
don't really get a lot of time to look at the map, anyways, but except when it's the other player's turn and you have nothing to do but fly around your drone waiting for their turn to end.
I'd like to see the biomes in the maps incorporated more into the gameplay, the map design. Like
Yeah.
have a big lava planet. We'll have some lava flowing through the map, or have make rocky platforms or caves or something. Instead of just these generic sci-fi building assets.
Now, they did do a little bit of adding some environmental stuff with there's certain maps that have kind of like explosive barrels. They don't look like your generic red barrel. They actually is like lava in a glass container. When you hit it, explodes. I didn't even know initially that there was any environmental hazards
Right.
until I saw Brevin wipe like an entire team on accident by hitting one of those. But one map that I have to say has a pretty unique look is the Iridium Plains, gigantic green, uh, glowing
Like rivers.
like yeah rivers and rocks and goo.
But again, it's not really
But
incorporated into
yeah,
the
yeah,
overall map.
it's all the outside of the map looks like
Right.
that. There's a slight green haze, but other than that, most of the map you'll be playing in will be the clean white buildings that you
Um,
see in a lot of sci-fi.
One map that does fully incorporate some of its aesthetic environmental offerings is the map. It's a purple forest landscape, and you've got this log that you can travel through that connects to different objectives, and then there's some roots from these giant trees that you can take cover behind, and some things like that. And while I have a little bit of issues with the way that map is laid out, I think overall its incorporation of the environment with the gameplay is really good, and I like the way it does that. And again, it's not a bad looking game at all. It's just a bit generic. It's
Yeah,
definitely a bit generic.
the characters are pretty generic, slightly cartoony, kind of falling into line with how not quite as far as Overwatch, but kind of giving the same vibe with the characters. You like select them, they say some voice line.
Right. I would say like a less iconic Team Fortress 2 type vibe with more sci-fi.
Yeah, sci-fi
Um,
elements
I guess.
and less like the people don't look as cartoony
Right,
overall,
right.
but they still act very cartoony. And I don't think that that style's bad or anything, but
No.
the characters are kind of generic. Obviously, none of this is going to affect gameplay, though.
Right.
It's just all style choices
And
that we're talking about.
talking about gameplay and these characters, we touched on it a little bit earlier, but I just wanted to nail down how fantastic this gameplay is. The strategic, just the strategy of this gameplay and how well all these characters operate together. Like we didn't even plan on, or I didn't plan on reviewing this game, but then me and Nate ended up playing 15 hours of it in 3 days, and so we decided, we better review it. And it's addicting, and sadly, I don't think it's gonna get too much mainstream appeal because it's a very steep difficulty curve going into it, and it's high concept. It's hard to understand. It can be hard to advertise, but for the people who play it, for the people that continue to play it enough to where they understand it and they enjoy it a lot, I think it's just going to offer a great time if you enjoy strategy games and shooters, chess and shooters. I think you're just going to really enjoy it, and I think it's going to just put a smile on your face. Honestly, it's just pretty fantastic all the way around, with a few issues,
Yeah.
but they just really nailed the concept.
I have to say I think that we were a bit more critical on this game than we have with some of the other ones we've talked about, which I guess as of right now is only really outward, but and then some missions in Fallout 3,
Right, right.
but I feel like we've had a little bit more criticisms than we usually have, but I think that those criticisms you should know are way overshadowed by
Right.
the really good aspects. Like this game is fantastic. If you like the strategy games, but you don't want to go in for like what is it, maybe like 5 hours of trying to
Right,
win a
right.
strategy
Like
game.
each match is
Yeah.
only, 20, 15, 20 minutes,
Yeah.
probably.
While at the same time getting a lot of the same like deep thinking that's required for some of the strategy games that might take a really long time to do, but at the same time, it requires a lot of skill because your strategy can be really messed up by poor execution.
Yeah, that's a really good. That's an interesting thing is with this combination of these two types. It's with poor execution, your strategy isn't going to work, and with poor strategy, your shooting skills aren't going to save you. Even in simultaneous, your shooting skills aren't going to save you with poor strategy. And one thing interesting that this game does that we've started to notice is it's sort of a bridge between, if you've got friends, you play strategy games, XCOM, Age of Wonders, Planetfall, or Civilization, whatever strategy games you enjoy, just chess. But you got friends that, all they play is Call of Duty or Fortnite or just Apex, just multiplayer shooters. Not that those are bad games, just they don't play the same kind of games you like. Well, it's a bridge. It's a bridging point if those people enjoy it, And I think that's what it's going to work for a lot, is as a bridging point between those two kind of people. And I think another good thing is that with its nature of only being 1v1 or 2v2, even with its niche population, it can last for a very long time. Like, as long as the servers are up, me and you can go play a few rounds of this and have the full experience with just me and you. And with all the problems we've talked about, we just can't stress enough how much fun we've had with this game and how much it's changed the hero shooter genre, how unique of a take it is on the hero shooter genre. And if you enjoyed Overwatch, you enjoyed other hero shooters, but you found that each of these different ones hasn't really changed the game that much. Like we see with Paladins and Crucible and even like something like Realm Royale, which took the hero shooter genre to a battle royale. None of these are changing the game as much as Lemnis Gate is. It's completely redoing the concept and just pulling it apart and putting it back together in a new way. And I just enjoyed the hell out of it, and I know Nate did.
Yeah.
um, Check out our Fallout 3 review coming out here in the next week. And like the video if you enjoyed Lemnis Gate or just enjoyed what we had to say about it. And follow the Brevosity for more content just based on RPGs and extremely original games, whether they be multiplayer or single player or whatever genre they may be. And we'll see you guys next time.